Hello. Why am I editing stream information? No. Right. Okay, well, I'm done editing stream information. There we go. Right. No bloody. Oh, I don't know. Hello, everyone. I am just being an idiot, unable to figure out how to use technologies. Uh, right. Did I post thing? Bah. Okay. What? See what's going on in the world. Another Russian poisoning, or rather, another poisoning of a opposition element to the Russian state, who might have just come down with something completely unrelated to Putin. Might be, you know, bad bit of chicken or something. Probably not, but might be. Just like, Sergei Skripal might have come across some random experimental neurotoxin just floating around Salisbury. Standard, you know. But, right. Happy Friday, everyone. Uh, I hope you're all having a continued pleasant existence on this planet. Unless you're watching from the ISS, in which case, hi. Haven't you got anything better to do? It is pretty cool that we've constantly had humans in space the last, 20 years. There are a lot of people alive who've never existed in a time when humans weren't in space. ISS is good project. Good project. Anyway, yeah. First off, apologies for no stream on Wednesday. I was about to start the stream and then had a big old panic attack, and it was just all shitty. Um, yeah, been a little bit rough lately, but hopefully, uh, hopefully I can nonetheless say something of vague interest to you. Yeah. So this poisoning is interesting and concerning. I mean, Putin's already demonstrated himself to be quite clearly a authoritarian dictator, which obviously isn't ideal, especially not ideal that he's good at it, KGB trained, knows what he's doing, and that he's in charge of the world's largest nuclear stockpile. Um, how did the debate go? Hey, J-Tips, good to see you. Yeah, it went pretty well, I thought. The other panelists were, by and large, pretty reasonable. I need to set up actually the red, grey, blue, one of the conservative righty. He's not really, sort of, I don't know, bit neocon-y maybe. I don't want to mischaracterize his position. But he was on the right of the panel. He was rather good interlocutor and seemed to have pretty reasonable positions on the things that we discussed. And crucially, though, I noticed just before we started the debate, he was showing off on stream a copy of Doing Good Better by Will MacAskill, the kind of EA Bible. Excuse me. And apparently he's a fan of it and a fan of effective altruism, so hopefully at some point in the not too distant future we'll be having a chat about that and maybe using that as a springboard to talk about political consensus and achieving meaningful political change in a very divided era. So yeah, it was a nice connection to make, and the debate itself was, I think, moderately productive. Honestly, it was more productive and like reasoned than I expected. Um, Several of the debates I've seen on Twitch have ended up being a bit like mad blood sports with everyone shouting over each other. So I'd kind of prepared myself to argue on some of the like fairly basic fact points of coronavirus is bad, guys, and masks do work to prevent people transmitting coronavirus to each other and this kind of thing. But we ended up having a somewhat massively more nuanced discussion, but it was I think uh, above average for the Twitch debates I've seen. Although most of the Twitch debates I've seen are with uh, creators, and I don't know, maybe they tend to get on the like spicier commentators. Um, but in terms of like my personal experience, I had fun. Uh, I would certainly like to do some more of them in the future, and I'm honestly fairly proud of myself for. Sorry, I'm just going to mute while I put my jumper on. Honestly, fairly proud of myself for functioning for 3.5 hours. Um, it like at the moment I've been a bit crap with sort of energy levels and staying like focused and on task for any period of time. Um, but yeah, sorry, reposition my mic. But yeah, it ends up being enjoyable if a bit tiring. Um, so good stuff, and hopefully, be on a few more in the future. Uh, and it's nice for networking, and I got a few new followers, and it's all good stuff. So yeah. Um, hey Josh, good to see you, and thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. Um, yeah, so it got some of my old sort of enjoyment of debate, roused a few of those old feelings. Because I used to do a weekly debate group thing called Rum and Rights. So in Oxford, there are various debating societies. The Tories have Port and Policy, Labour has Beer and Bickering, the Lib Dems have Spirited Discussion, and then there's Rum and Rights, which I'm not sure if it was the original one. I think Port and Policy came first. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Which is the kind of non-aligned, vaguely. It actually started off as a like youth wing of the charity Liberty, but pretty quickly dissociated each other because it involved a lot of drinking and debating controversial topics. Um, and yeah, you just get sort of uh, like half a dozen to 20 people in a room all arguing over one topic and getting quite drunk, and there'd be a motion and then a series of sub motions depending on what we actually discussed during the debate, and it had some of the same qualities of Twitch debating where you've got a bunch of people kind of talking over each other a little bit, but engaged in good-natured, or at least qualities of Twitch debate at its best, uh, good-natured, spirited, occasionally like mildly insulting, but in a good-natured sort of way, that kind of debate. And yeah, usually with people, taking up idiotic political positions for the purpose of enjoying an argument. Um, and it reminded me a bit of that. Um, oh, um, so yeah. Anyway, hopefully more in the future. I'm kind of just babbling on a little bit. As I said, I'm feeling a little bit crap, so I can't promise this will be the highest energy um, uh, stream ever. But um, I oh hello, my cat's just come in. Uh, this should definitely do more multi-person debates. I think it brings out some of your best qualities. Thank you. Um, I think I got a couple of decent dunks in, uh, and yeah. Um, but yeah, anyway. Is there anything anybody wants to chat about? Because if not, I was figuring I'd just like go over a bit of news. Trying to like keep up with. I don't know. That sentence just went nowhere. Um, yeah. So Navalny, I'm not particularly familiar with the Russian opposition. But no, stop clawing at the couch. Stop it. Stop it. Yeah, I know. I know you want to claw at the couch. Come on. Just giving me a mad look. Like I've deeply offended her. Um, yeah. So, as I was saying, sort of the thing with Putin, thing about Putin is that he's very much aware that any overly massive provocation is going to cause problems with NATO, with international condemnation, and his military's certainly not in the state to be fighting a all-out war as it was back in the days of the Soviet Union, at least until the later Union. Um, and so he's got to engage in these little salami slicing tactics of trying to gather up more influence, uh, make small little territory grabs, but do it in a way that's just non-provocative enough and just confusing enough to avoid inciting any intervention or any meaningful intervention. And we see this with uh, Ukraine, Crimea, um, and now possibly with Belarus. Putin seems to be angling for potential uh, uh, assistance, if not military support. Have you seen Putin joke with female mountain police? No, I haven't. What's that, Josh? I have not seen this. Uh, and it is rather concerning because I don't have a fucking clue what to do about it. And obviously, we could just get very muscular and start ramping up military tensions, which might be okay if it were a regular uh, autocratic regime. If it were Russia minus the weapons of mass destruction, it would be probably not too difficult to get them to back down. Um, but he does have a lot of nukes. I think Russia's got is it like 3,500 um like active plus another same amount again like in various states of disassembly, something like that. And that's not even like a little nuclear stockpile like Israel or North Korea or a modest one like, China or France. That's a fuck ton of nukes. And as many uh, dictators have learned over the past several decades, nukes are very effective for getting people to not want to fight you. I say many dictators, many countries in general. Uh, don't think any country that's gone nuclear has received a severe invasion. When did Israel get nukes? I mean, obviously so Israel. For those who don't know, Israel has nukes, but they don't talk about them. And officially, they have a policy of like the people in a current future history lesson. Thank you. Um, so officially, they have a policy of not commenting. Um, uh, but in practice, everyone knows they've got them. And arguably, it's not a bad nuclear policy. Ensuring that one's enemies are aware that one has some kind of nuclear capability, but not playing it up in the way that the US several times throughout 20th century history has used implicit or sometimes explicit threat of nuclear annihilation as a diplomatic tool, which is a pretty shitty diplomatic tool, if you ask me. Now, of course, it's not just the US, Russia has as well. I'm not sure if the smaller nuclear powers have much. Anyway, but uh, so Israel uh, has small little stockpile, and yeah, so they they'll say, I think sometime maybe in the 70s. Um, I don't know the region's history enough to comment, but I think the general thesis I was going for, which is that the nuclear armed nations haven't faced major invasion threat holds. They are undeniably an effective deterrent, and arguably the mutual deterrence, the mutual assured destruction that's been present between the USA and Russia, or the USA and the Soviet Union throughout the 20th century, prevented a major war from breaking out, arguably. Um, Personally, I think it probably did. I think mutually assured destruction did work, um, but so if we could wave a magic wand and not have nukes, it's probably better to do that, even risking a non-nuclear World War III, because a say 50% risk of a war that kills 100 million is better than a say even 5% risk of a war that kills pretty much everyone. Um, so this is a lesson that North Korea, that Iraq, when they were pursuing WMDs, that Syria until they gave them up and learned a hard lesson, and everyone else learned a hard lesson, that Pakistan and India have both learned. All these countries, smaller or less developed countries, getting hold of nuclear weapons because it prevents larger threatening nations from wanting to fuck with them, or at least increases the cost of fucking with them to the point that it's certainly less attractive. I think there's a pretty good probability that we would have gone to, say we, at least the US, would have gone to war with North Korea by now if it weren't for the fact that they have nukes and incidentally have probably biological weapons program. There's a good chance that, according to intelligence assessments by the South Koreans, there's a pretty good chance that North Korea has smallpox, um, and they definitely have capacity the industrial capacity to produce large amounts of biological materials. Now, whether or not they have like an active program developing this, mm, who knows? But the chance that just smallpox is relegated just to the labs at Vector and the CDC in Russia and the US, respectively, is pretty slim. There are probably other countries that have it in cold storage. Indeed, it was accidentally found in a US lab not that long ago, 2016, I think, a few years back. Anyway, I digress once again. Um, Point is that having a nuclear stockpile and using it scarily or wielding it scarily is a really good way of preventing anyone fucking with you. And nobody wants to push back on Russian aggression because everyone remembers the Cold War when we were, you know, minutes away from utter devastation. Not that we aren't to some degree now, but even more pressingly. So we let um, uh, Russian aggression. Yeah, we're talking about you know poisoning of political opponents and um, uh, invading Ukraine, etc. Uh, I would call these fairly aggressive acts. Yeah, okay. If oh, why did I put politics tag on? I'm not in the mood for this. I'm just wittering at the camera. Um, yeah, we're on the Washington Post. I'm a filthy liberal, and I believe everything the imperialist propaganda feeds me. Yum yum yum. Lick 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 boot. Yeah. Um, you're probably not going to enjoy this one. Sorry, I'm normally more in the mood for debates, but I just let me change this to IRL or something, because the politics one always uh, uh, brings in people who are a bit spicy, which um, is no, well, it was. I've changed it to just chatting, um, which is, like I say, normally something I'm in the mood for, but yeah, not today. Um, Today I'm in the mood for regurgitating the propaganda that I've read in books and newspapers and heard on podcasts and from various sources. Um, but yeah, so speaking of books, I just got through Max Hastings' history uh, of the Korean War, and um, yeah, it's the one of the kind of takeaways from that is not that I'm saying that Max Hastings' books should be the be all and end all of historical inquiry by any means. I just took an interest in it because I heard some people debating about it the other day and realised that I know very little about the actual events of the Korean War, so I figured I'd get a kind of general overview. I might dive into it in a bit more depth at some point, but um, one of the takeaways from the Korean War, if you believe the imperialist propaganda, of course, is that the inciting event was the North Koreans, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, invading the South and doing so in a particularly brazen and aggressive manner. that far outstrips anything that the Soviet Union or any other communist or generally authoritarian kind of dictatorial countries have engaged in since. And it was that aggression, the obviousness of the invasion, that led to a very strong response by, well, by the UN. Of course, that kind of military response isn't something that the UN's likely to do in the future because, you know, well, various reasons. But uh, the UN, pretty much entirely led by the US, but big coalition responded and pushed back the North Koreans, and then it got into a big, long, messy war. But the communist powers took away from that the fact that obvi- obvious, blatant, hostile acts are likely to receive a strong negative response. So since then, my impression is at least that they've been engaging in much more subtle, gradual, uh, and ambiguous actions to expand their spheres of influence. Um, Not that this is, you know, entirely limited to uh, the bad countries, you know, the evil regimes. It's the good guys who sometimes do it too. You know, if we look at the history of the CIA in Central and South America, they engaged in plenty of kind of low intensity um, aggressive action for the purposes of furthering their political goals. But you know, the CIA uh, hasn't really done that in a while, have they? I don't know. Oh, right. I don't know. I think I think I might leave it there. Yeah, I'm just not super in the mood this evening. Um, and yeah, I don't need an excuse. I'm just not super in the mood, and I'm probably not going to produce particularly interesting content, so I won't waste your time. Which is fine. You know, I can have an off day every now and then. That's okay. So I'm going to be hopefully back on Monday. Um, oh hey, Talk Johnson. Uh, hey, it's not the ideal time to follow me as I'm about to bugger off, but I don't know um, if you like my stuff, I highly recommend the debate I was involved with, or if you think you might like my stuff when I'm performing a bit better, you might like the debate I was involved with my uh, hippy dippy recruitment podcast VOD. If you go check it out down there or down there somewhere, I don't know. That was good. Um, but yeah, come join in. I'll be back on Monday, 8 p.m. UK time, and hopefully this coming, maybe not this coming week, but hopefully sometime soon, I'm going to have an AI researcher on to talk about GPT-3, which should be interesting, and also chatting hopefully at some point with Red Grey Blue about effective altruism and you know why it's good and why we should do good, which is a topic I'm very interested in. Cool. So yeah, thanks for the follow, and I will see you all around in the future. Ta ta. Have a nice weekend, everyone.